All right, buckle up, space cadets. We're launching a deep dive into one of history's greatest enigmas. Did we or didn't we land on the moon? You know, the drill listener sent in some seriously compelling research, and this time, we're talking a full-blown podcast script dedicated entirely to moon landing conspiracy theories.
I gotta say, some of this stuff is out of this world.
What I find endlessly fascinating is how this topic even makes skeptics like myself pause and wonder what if. Just for a second, picture it. 1969, Cold War tensions are reaching boiling point, and the U.S. is locked in a breakneck race with the Soviets to conquer space. The pressure for a decisive victory, immense. So the stage is set for skepticism to flourish. The U.S. needs a win, and it has to be a big one to cement their dominance in the space race. I can practically hear the thought bubble forming, what if it was all staged? This podcast script you sent over makes some pretty interesting points, especially about the photos, like the whole "where are the stars" thing. No atmosphere to cloud the view, shouldn't the lunar sky be teeming with them?
That's a real head-scratcher, and it comes up constantly in these discussions. But think about it this way. Snapping a photo of stars requires a longer exposure time, and the lunar surface during the day is surprisingly bright thanks to all that reflected sunlight.
You're saying it's not that the stars aren't visible, they're just totally overwhelmed by the sun's glare. Makes sense. Okay, but what about that American flag? It looks like it's waving in the breeze, but there's no air on the moon.
Yes, the waving flag, a classic point of contention. Put yourself in an astronaut's boots for a second. You're on the moon, about to plant the American flag for the whole world to see. Don't you want it to look its absolute best? A little twist here, a little adjustment there. Make it pop, right?
I mean, yeah. But wouldn't it just flop over without any wind to hold it up?
That's where a little ingenuity comes in handy. This was no ordinary flag. It was mounted on a special telescoping pole with a horizontal bar that extended out, making it look like a sail billowing in the wind.
Okay, that's one mystery down. But the script also brings up these weird shadows in some photos, almost like there were multiple light sources involved. Don't tell me there's a perfectly reasonable explanation for that, too.
You see, light plays by different rules on the moon. No atmosphere to scatter the light like we're used to here on Earth. So you get these really stark contrasts between light and shadow. Plus, the lunar surface is pretty uneven, which can make shadows look distorted in photos.
So you're saying our Earthling intuition about how things should look doesn't fly on the moon. These weird inconsistencies might actually be totally normal given the moon's, let's say, unique environment.
Precisely. But let's pivot for a moment because you touched on another compelling point in your research. The technology. Was it even remotely possible in the 1960s to pull off a feat as complex as a moon landing? Or was it all a little too convenient, as the script suggests?
It's like saying, hey, let's build a smartphone, but all we've got are rotary phones. The computing power alone back then.
That's where this whole thing gets really intriguing. The script harps on how fast NASA went from, hey, moon mission, to, boom, we're on the moon. And yeah, it was insanely fast. But imagine this. You're throwing a party, not just any party, the party and all parties. Budget's no issue. You're getting the best food, the best entertainment, everything top-notch. Spare no expense.
Okay, I'm following. So the space race was like this epic party, and the U.S. was determined to be the host with the most. Only instead of fancy appetizers and a killer DJ, it was all rocket fuel and lunar modules.
Bingo. The Apollo program wasn't just some scientist tinkering away in a lab. It was a nationwide all-hands-on-deck situation. Mountains of resources and some of the brightest minds all laser-focused on one goal. Plus, don't forget that rivalry with the Soviets was intense, like throwing gasoline on an already raging fire.
So it's not that the technology was straight up impossible for the time. It's more that the sheer scale of the thing seems almost impossible. But hold on. Even with all those brilliant minds and all that national pride, wouldn't someone have blown the whistle if it was all fake? The podcast script we got brings up a good point. Where are all the whistleblowers? Out of everyone involved, you'd think at least one person would have spilled the tea by now.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it brings us to the psychology of conspiracy theories, which can be just as fascinating as the theories themselves. Let's say, for argument's sake, that you stumble across something that turns your whole world upside down, like, oh my God, the moon landing was staged. Naturally, you're going to go looking for more information to either confirm it or debunk it, right? Here's the kicker, though. As humans, we have this thing called confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias. Fill me in.
It's like this. We tend to gravitate towards information that backs up what we already believe, even if those beliefs are on shaky ground. And conversely, we tend to brush off or completely ignore information that contradicts what we believe.
So if I'm already kind of sus about the moon landing, I'm more likely to cling to anything that supports the hoax theory, even if it's flimsy, and ignore anything that says it really happened.
You got it. And that's where conspiracy theories can really take root and spread. They give you a different narrative, this feeling of, I know something most people don't. And that can be pretty powerful.
It's like being in a secret club with special knowledge. I get the appeal. But let's not forget about the elephant in the room. Or should I say, the rock on the moon. This podcast script we're looking at mentions those lunar samples the Apollo missions brought back. If it was all staged, wouldn't they have just grabbed some rocks from, like, their backyard or something?
That's where things get really interesting from a purely scientific perspective. These moon rocks aren't your run-of-the-mill rocks. They have completely different makeup than anything we find here on Earth.
Hold on, back up a sec. What you're saying is not just any old rock could pass for a moon rock. What makes them so unique?
Imagine you're baking a cake,
Right?
Got your recipe, flour, sugar, eggs, all measured out perfectly. Now someone comes along with another cake, looks kind of similar, but they used totally different ingredients. You'd be able to tell it wasn't made with your recipe, right?
Okay, yeah. Delicious analogy. So these moon rocks, they have a unique recipe that's like, hey, we're definitely not from Earth.
Precisely. Scientists have put these rocks under the microscope, literally, analyzed their atomic structure, and guess what? They found minerals and isotopes that are crazy rare on Earth, but way more common in lunar material. Not just that they even found traces of cosmic ray bombardment. You know those high-energy particles that are constantly whizzing through space?
So unless NASA's got a secret stash of cosmic ray guns and a knack for baking space rocks, I'm thinking this evidence is pretty tough to fake. This is a lot to unpack, though. For our listeners out there who are as hooked on this whole moon landing debate as I am, what's the main thing they should take away from all this?
The cool thing about diving into conspiracy theories, even the ones that sound totally bonkers, is that it forces us to think critically. Makes you question things, dig deeper, not just accept what you hear.
It's like a workout for your skepticism muscles. But where's the line between healthy skepticism and, going full conspiracy theorist?
That's the million-dollar question. It's about finding that balance, being open to questioning the official story, but also being willing to follow the evidence, wherever it leads, even if it challenges what we thought we knew.
So maybe it's less about finding a definitive answer and more about the journey of exploring these ideas.
Exactly. And sometimes the most important discoveries are the ones we make about ourselves. How we process information, what we choose to believe, and how we handle living in a world that's overflowing with information. Some true, some not so much.
Well said. Looks like our deep dive into the moon landing conspiracy has reached a satisfying conclusion. We've explored those claims, dug into the evidence, and hopefully given our listeners a new perspective on this age-old debate.
And hey, maybe even sparked a little curiosity in you to do some exploring of your own. Question everything, seek knowledge, and never be afraid to keep an open mind.
Until next time, keep looking up at the stars and never stop asking, what if?